Let's continue looking at the basics of UVs in Maya. I'm going to focus on my cylinder for this case, and we've assigned a material and we have UV coordinates for that object. We can see how the various components or various parts of the texture are being shown on our model. I'm going to turn off my texture view here, and let's say we want to make a custom texture for this object outside of Maya, let's say perhaps in Photoshop. I'm going to go to Image, and I'm going to export something called a UV Snapshot, and this will allow me to develop a texture outside of Maya that I can then re-import into this scene. I'm going to call this, let's see, textures, and let's call this cylinder UV snapshot. I'm saving it as a TIFF file, and 1024 pixels. I want these pixels to be in powers of 2. So 2, 4, 16, 32, 64, 128, 256, 512, 1024, 2048. That's going to be the most economical. I'm going to leave the tile areas by default at 1 and 1. And if I were now to open up Photoshop, and open that file that I just saved out, textures cylinder UV snapshot.tiff. It is challenging to read because it is by default transparent, so I'm going to make a new layer and drop that underneath my imported layer. I'm going to make it white, and so now I can see my UV snapshots here. And if I were to make a layer on top, I'm going to make some very, very simple kind of color assignments here. Say I want red, oops, red for this area. Let's make this one blue. And then for the drum of the model, let's make it royal blue. And if I were to save that down, I'm going to save it into a PNG file. I'm going to call the cylinder UV snapshot painted. And if I were to go back to Maya into the hypershade where this material is loaded, instead of loading the UV PNG, if I were to load in that new painted material, maybe we can now see how I can begin to strategize and use these UVs with perhaps photographic textures, painted textures, other material more than simply color blocking, to be very intentional about how textural information gets mapped onto my object in Maya. But also this workshop or this tutorial is aimed for our destination may not be Maya, it may be another 3D application, it may be a game engine, it may be Unity that we're making our maps for, but we can view them in Maya, we can unwrap our UVs in Maya, we can do a lot of the legwork that will help us prepare for more intentional models and materials through the Maya interface.